ending only with cultivation. The extreme view of a mind occurs in dependence on the view of a self, but the view associated with this, jhanas, does not occur in dependence on that. It perpetually grasps an inner self, and for that reason must have a view of a self. Furthermore, as a result of the firmness of views, doubt cannot occur. Because of the love for and attachment to a self, antagonism cannot occur. Thus there are only 4 passions associated with this consciousness.
Why do the 3, view of a self, conceit, and self-love occur together? Because their modes of activity are not contradictory, so there is no reason why they cannot occur together. The Yogacarabhini Sastra says that covetousness humbles the mind while conceit exalts it, and is that not a contradiction? No, there is no contradiction between that text and this position, because that text and this one make distinctions. The treatise refers to discrimination, an external realm of contempt for others, and the gross, while we speak of the innate passions, an interior realm, exaltation, and the subtle.
8. Other associated dharmas. Are there only 4 mental activities associated with manas? No, because, Vasubandhu says, along with others such as contact. One interpretation is that this manas has only 9 mental activities, the 4 passions mentioned above, plus the 5 dharmas that include contact. These are contact, attention, feeling, conceptualization, and volition, because manas is really associated with these universal dharmas. Previously, in Vasubandhu's verses, it was said that contact, etc., are associated with consciousness as retribution, and out of concern, that contact associated with manas would be thought to be unsoiled, as in store consciousness, the word otis is used to show that they are different from these. The word and has the function of combining, because the former 4 passions are combined with the latter 5 as always associated with manas.
Why has this manas no other mental activities? Desire is hope for something as yet unattained, but this consciousness is content in taking something already attained as its object. It does not hope for anything and therefore knows no desire. Resolve is acknowledgement of something still pending. This consciousness has, beginninglessly, always had something fixed as an object and therefore has no resolve. Recollection is simply remembering an event that took place in the past. This consciousness always has as an object something being experienced in the present and therefore has nothing to remember. Therefore there is no recollection. Samadhi holds mind steadily onto an object. This consciousness freely distinguishes its object moment by moment, and since it does not concentrate, it is devoid of samadhi. Discernment is the same as the view of a self and therefore it is not considered separately.
Since good dharmas are pure, they do not accompany this consciousness. The secondary passions originate and differentiate in successive states of the basic passions. This consciousness is only associated with 4 passions that remain in a homogeneous state in their sequence, and therefore there are no secondary passions among the associates of this consciousness. Regret is remorse for something done previously. This consciousness unconcernedly and perpetually takes a present event as an object and does not regret former actions. Therefore it has no regret. Torpor sometimes occurs for a while as a result of heaviness and dullness of mind and body due to external events, but this consciousness is beginninglessly homogeneous and uniformly attached to something within and does not rely on an external object, and therefore torpor does not occur. Applied and sustained thought, vitarka vikara, take place with respect to an external world. These are, respectively, shallow and deep investigation of objects, and are expressed grossly or subtly in speech. This consciousness is unassociated with it, because it evolves dependent on internal matters, homogeneously attached to a self.
There is an interpretation that the former explanation of others is not correct, because Vasubandhu's verse says elsewhere that this manas is categorized as defiled. Also, that interpretation omits the fact that manas is associated with secondary passions. Passions must be accompanied by secondary passions, and therefore the word others points to the secondary passions. With regard to this, there is an interpretation that 5 secondary passions are universally associated with all impure minds. The Abhidharmasamukha says that torpor, agitation, faithlessness, indolence, and thoughtlessness are always associated with all defiled classes of minds, because in the absence of such things as inability, defiled natures do not occur. When passions occur, the mind is defiled, therefore, mind in a defiled state must have these 5 secondary passions.
The reason is that if passions occur, it is due to inability, i.e., torpor, agitation, faithlessness, indolence, and thoughtlessness. Even though agitation is found universally among defiled minds, still it increases when accompanied by craving and is therefore spoken of as a component of craving, just as regret and drowsiness, though found universally in minds of all 3 natures, good, bad, and undetermined, are always said to be components of delusion, because they increase in a state of delusion. Even though some sources say that either 6 or 10 secondary passions are found in defiled minds, this universality is discussed from a different point of view and does not really mean universally present in all defiled minds.
6 secondary passions among the 20 are mentioned by separating out gross and subtle, indeterminate and bad, and obstacles to samadhi and discernment. 10 are mentioned among the 22 of one list by separating the 2 natures of gross and subtle, so those texts do not contradict our interpretation. This manas is associated with 15 mental activities, i.e., the previous 9 dharmas, 5 secondary passions, and discernment among the mental activities with specific objects. Even though the view of a self is categorized as discernment among mental activities with specific objects, still the 2 are distinguished in the list of 51 mental activities and are considered to be 2 different activities. Why is this manas devoid of the other mental activities? The 10 mental activities, such as anger, are gross in their modes of activity, but this consciousness is subtle in its discernment and is therefore unassociated with anger, etc. Shamelessness and heedlessness of blame, anapatrapya, are not good only, while this manas is indeterminate and therefore unassociated. Distraction makes the mind move out to external objects, but this manas arises perpetually grasping an internal object of just one kind and without concern for externals. Therefore, it is not associated with distraction. Incorrect knowing, as samprajanya, generates external activities of body, speech, and mind, contradicting and exceeding the rule, but this manas only grasps internally and is therefore not associated with inaccurate knowing. Other mental activities missing are as discussed above.
There is an interpretation that 6 secondary passions are associated with all impure minds. The Yogacarabhimi Sastra says faithlessness, indolence, thoughtlessness, forgetfulness, distraction, and inaccurate knowing are associated with all impure minds. In the absence of forgetfulness, distraction, and inaccurate knowing, the mind cannot generate the passions, because passions such as craving only appear when there is forgetfulness or wrong judgment regarding various kinds of objects already experienced. When passions arise, the mind necessarily roams about heedlessly, and passions arise as a result of distraction concerning some object. The mode of activity of agitation and torpor are mutually contradictory and cannot occur universally in all minds. When the treatise says that 5 dharmas are found in all defiled minds, it is because it distinguishes gross and subtle dharmas that contradict only good dharmas, those that are purely secondary passions, and those that are common to both natures, of bad and indeterminate. With regard to the matter of 10 universals, this has been explained above.
Manas is associated with 19 mental activities. The previously mentioned 9 dharmas, such as contact, 6 secondary passions, along with memory, samadhi, discernment, and torpor. Special mention of memory can be explained as discernment was earlier. Samadhi is included because manas concentrates on one single kind of thing, the self that is grasped as object, and never lets it go. Torpor is